The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Commander Jake Morrison stepped into the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. He had seen pictures of this place during the months of preparation, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of it. The chamber stretched upward for what seemed like miles, with crystalline walls that shifted colors every few seconds. Floating platforms held representatives from dozens of alien species, each one stranger than the last. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Harper clutched her data tablet a little tighter. She was Earth's lead xenanthropologist, and she had spent the last year preparing for this moment. Her hands were steady, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. They were the first humans to stand before the Galactic Council, and everyone back on Earth was watching. "Humans of Earth," a voice boomed through the chamber, though Jake couldn't tell where it came from. "You may approach the speaker's platform." Jake and Lisa walked forward, their footsteps echoing in the massive space. As they moved, Jake noticed the aliens watching them. Some had multiple eyes. Others had no eyes at all. There were beings made of what looked like living crystal, creatures that floated in tanks of colored gas, and things that Jake's brain couldn't quite process into any familiar shape. They reached the platform, and it began to rise, lifting them up to the center of the chamber where all the council members could see them clearly. Jake felt his stomach drop a little. He had been a pilot for 15 years, but this was different. This wasn't flying. This was standing exposed in front of beings who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. "State your purpose," the voice commanded. Jake cleared his throat. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, we come from Earth seeking membership in your community. We bring our skills, our knowledge, and our desire to learn from those who have walked the stars longer than we have." There was a moment of silence. Then, from one of the platforms, a being that looked like it was made of purple crystal spoke. "Your application has been reviewed. Your species is young? Very young. You have barely left your own star system. What makes you think you are ready to join the galactic community?" Lisa stepped forward. This was her part. "We may be young, but we have much to offer. Our species has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. We have built civilizations and torn them down and built them again. We have music, art, science, and stories that span thousands of years. We are adaptable, creative, and determined." Another alien spoke, this one from a platform to the left. It had multiple tentacles and a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "Stories, you say? Tell us about these stories. We wish to understand your culture." Lisa smiled. This was exactly what she had hoped for. She tapped her tablet, and holographic images appeared in the air around them. Images of ancient temples, old books, paintings of gods and heroes. "Humanity has always told stories," she began. "Before we had writing, we passed down tales from generation to generation. Stories about how the world was created. Stories about heroes who faced impossible challenges. Stories about gods who lived in the sky and controlled the weather, the seas, and the fate of mortals." She pulled up an image of Zeus, the Greek god of thunder, holding his lightning bolt. "This is Zeus, king of the gods in ancient Greek mythology. The Greeks believed he could throw lightning from the sky and control the storms." There was a ripple of sound through the chamber. It took Jake a moment to realize what it was. Laughter. The aliens were laughing, the purple crystal being spoke again, and Jake could hear amusement in its voice. "You believe that a person in the sky threw lightning? How delightfully primitive." Lisa's smile tightened, but she continued. "We also have stories about great heroes, like Hercules, who performed 12 impossible tasks, or Beowulf, who fought monsters to protect his people. These stories taught us about courage, sacrifice, and honor." More laughter. A being that looked like a floating ball of light spoke up. "Monsters? You mean you believed in creatures that don't exist? Fascinating. Most species outgrow such fantasies within a few centuries of developing rational thought." Jake felt his jaw clench. He wanted to defend humanity, to tell these arrogant aliens that Earth's myths and legends were beautiful and meaningful. But he stayed quiet. This was Lisa's presentation, and she was better with words than he was. Lisa continued through her presentation, showing images of Norse gods, Egyptian deities, Native American spirit animals, and Asian dragons. With each new myth, the council members seemed more amused. By the time she reached the section on guardian angels and protective spirits, several of the aliens were openly mocking humans. Ambassador Thren, the representative from the Valorian Empire, spoke with barely concealed contempt. Let me understand this correctly. Your species believed that invisible beings watched over you and protected you from harm? And you thought that gods lived in mountains and oceans and trees? These were our ancestors' beliefs, Lisa said carefully. They helped us make sense of a universe we didn't yet understand scientifically. How many sentient species are in this council? Thren asked the room. 47, someone answered. And how many have encountered anything remotely supernatural or divine in their exploration of the galaxy? Silence. Exactly, Thren continued. Because such things do not exist. The universe operates on physical laws, not myths and legends. Your species' attachment to these primitive superstitions suggests an immature civilization, one that may not be ready for the responsibilities of galactic membership. Jake couldn't stay quiet anymore. Our myths don't make us weak. They make us human. They teach us values and give us hope. Every culture on Earth has stories like these, and we've kept them alive for thousands of years. That shows dedication and respect for our history. Thren's crystalline body flickered, or it shows an inability to let go of childish fantasies. The voice that had greeted them initially spoke again. Enough debate. We will vote on Earth's application. All in favor of granting provisional membership? Lights appeared around the chamber as the aliens voted. Jake held his breath. They needed a simple majority. The seconds stretched out like hours. The vote is decided, the voice announced. Earth is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. You will be assigned to Mining Sector 7 in the Outer Rim territories. You may establish trade relationships and participate in council discussions, but you will not have voting rights for a minimum of 50 standard years. This time will allow your species to mature and prove your worth to the galactic community. Relief flooded through Jake. It wasn't everything they had hoped for, but it was something. They were in. Humanity had a place among the stars. You are dismissed, the voice said. The platform lowered, and Jake and Lisa walked back toward the shuttle. Neither of them spoke until they were inside with the doors sealed. Well, Lisa said, setting down her tablet. That could have gone better. Jake laughed, though there wasn't much humor in it. Mining Sector 7, the Outer Rim. They basically gave us the worst assignment possible. At least we're in, Lisa said. That's what matters. We'll prove ourselves. We'll show them that humanity deserves respect. They laughed at us, Jake said quietly. They laughed at stories that billions of people have treasured for thousands of years. Lisa nodded. I know, and I wanted to tell them that those myths and legends are part of what makes us special, that our ability to believe in something bigger than ourselves, to imagine and dream and hope, is a strength, not a weakness. Maybe one day they'll understand that, Jake said. Maybe, Lisa agreed. The shuttle lifted off, carrying them away from the Grand Hall and back toward the human ship waiting in orbit. As they flew through space, Jake looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Mining Sector 7, a region of space that the other species apparently didn't care much about. That's where humanity would start its journey into the larger galaxy. He thought about the ancient stories Lisa had shown the council. Gods and heroes, monsters and magic. Every human culture had them in some form. They were woven into art, literature, religion, and philosophy. They had inspired countless people throughout history to be brave, to be kind, to keep going when things seemed impossible. The council had laughed. They thought humanity's myths were signs of a backward, primitive species. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans were naive and immature compared to these ancient civilizations, or maybe, Jake thought, the other species had lost something important along the way. Maybe in their rush to embrace pure logic and science, they had forgotten how to dream. The shuttle docked with the human ship, and Jake and Lisa were greeted by their crew. There were cheers and congratulations. They had done it. Humanity was officially part of the Galactic Council, but as the celebration went on around him, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something important had happened in that chamber. The way the aliens had laughed at human myths felt like more than just mockery. It felt like a warning sign, like they had dismissed something they didn't understand. He looked at Lisa across the room. She was smiling and talking with the crew, but he could see the same thoughts in her eyes. They had been laughed at today. Their culture had been called primitive and childish. Time would tell if the Galactic Council was right or if humanity's myths. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council, and Captain Ryan Beck was beginning to understand why the other species hadn't wanted. Mining Sector 7, there was nothing out here. Just empty space, dead rocks, and the occasional cloud of dust that used to be a star. The horizon's edge moved slowly through the darkness, its sensors scanning for anything useful. Ryan sat in the captain's chair, watching the displays with tired eyes. They had been out here for 3 months, and so far they had found exactly 2 deposits of minerals worth mining, 2 in 3 months. "Captain," a voice called from the science station. "I'm picking up something strange." Ryan sat up straighter. Dr. Amy Sullivan was his science officer, and she didn't use the word strange lightly. She was careful, precise, and very good at her job. If she said something was strange, it was worth paying attention to. What kind of strange? Ryan asked, walking over to her station. Amy pointed at her screen, where lines of data scrolled past faster than Ryan could read. Energy readings. They're coming from inside the Veil of Silence. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. The Veil of Silence was a nebula about 2 days' travel from their current position. It got its name because nothing came out of it. No signals, no light in the normal spectrum, nothing. Ships avoided it because sensors didn't work properly inside the gas clouds, and there was no reason to go there anyway. "What kind of energy?" Ryan asked. "That's the strange part," Amy said. "It doesn't match anything in the database. It's not any kind of power signature we know. Not fusion, not antimatter, not even close to any alien technology we've encountered." Ryan studied the readings. They were faint, coming in pulses every few minutes. Like a heartbeat, almost. Could it be natural? Some kind of stellar phenomenon? Amy shook her head. The pattern is too regular, and the energy type is wrong for anything natural. "Captain, I think there's something artificial in there." The rest of the bridge crew had gone quiet, listening. Ryan knew what they were thinking because he was thinking it too. They were supposed to be looking for minerals, not investigating mysterious energy signatures. Protocol said they should report this to the Galactic Council and wait for instructions, but Protocol also said that humanity was stuck out here in the least important sector of space, basically forgotten by the species that had laughed at their myths 6 months ago. If they found something interesting, something important, maybe that would change. "How long would it take us to get there?" Ryan asked. 2 days at current speed, the navigator answered. "Less if we push the engines." "And how long to investigate once we arrive?" Amy thought for a moment. "If we're careful, a few hours. Maybe a day at most." Ryan made his decision. "Set course for the Veil of Silence. Full speed. Amy, I want you to prepare a complete sensor package. If there's something in there, I want to know everything about it." The crew moved quickly, energized by the prospect of actually finding something after months of empty space. The horizon's edge turned and accelerated, heading toward the dark nebula. Ryan knew he was taking a risk. If this turned out to be nothing, he would have wasted time and fuel chasing shadows. If it turned out to be dangerous, he might be putting his crew in harm's way. But something in his gut told him this was important. 2 days later, they reached the edge of the Veil of Silence. Up close, the nebula looked like a wall of black and purple gas, swirling slowly in patterns that made Ryan's eyes hurt if he looked too long. "Take us in slowly," Ryan ordered. "Amy, keep those sensors active. I want to know the second anything changes." The ship moved forward and the nebula swallowed them. Immediately, Ryan could see what the reports had meant about sensor problems. The screens flickered and jumped, showing data that didn't make sense. Outside the windows, the gas was so thick that they could barely see more than a few hundred meters in any direction. Energy signature is getting stronger, Amy reported. It's coming from deeper inside. Maybe another hour at this speed. They continued forward, and the crew watched the sensors nervously. This was uncharted space in every sense of the word. No ship had ever gone this deep into the veil of silence. They had no idea what they might find. After 50 minutes, Amy suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I'm getting visual. There's something ahead." "Something big?" "On screen," Ryan ordered. The main display switched to a forward view, and Ryan felt his breath catch. Through the purple gas, he could see a structure. It was massive, easily several kilometers across, shaped like a ring standing on its edge. The material looked like stone, but stone that seemed to glow with a faint inner light. And carved into every surface were symbols and patterns that made Ryan's head spin when he tried to focus on them. "My God," someone whispered. Amy was already scanning the structure, her fingers flying across her console. "Captain, this thing is old." "Really old?" "The materials don't match anything in our database or the Galactic Council's records. This predates every known civilization by thousands of years. Maybe millions." Ryan stared at the ancient ring. It was beautiful in a way that was almost frightening. Looking at it made him feel small, like a child staring up at something built by giants. "Amy," he said quietly, "does this remind you of anything?" She looked up from her console, confused. "What do you mean?" "The shape. The carvings. Look at the way it's built." Amy studied the image more carefully and her eyes went wide. "Oh my God. It looks like a temple. Like the ancient temples from Earth, Greek maybe. Or Norse, the proportions, the way the columns are arranged." "Exactly," Ryan said. "It looks like something from human mythology. But that's impossible, right? This thing is millions of years old, and it's thousands of light years from Earth." Before anyone could answer, the structure began to glow brighter. The symbols carved into its surface started to pulse with light, one after another, creating a pattern that moved around the ring faster and faster. "Captain, it's activating," Amy shouted. "The energy readings are going crazy. I think we triggered something just by being here." "Back us off," Ryan ordered. "Full reverse." The horizon's edge started moving backward, but the structure was already fully active. A beam of light shot out from the center of the ring, not toward their ship, but straight up, piercing through the nebula and out into space. Then a pulse of energy exploded outward from the structure, a wave that washed over the ship and kept going, spreading out in all directions. The lights on the bridge flickered. Every screen went white for a moment. Then, just as suddenly, everything went back to normal. The structure was still there, still glowing, but the light was fading now, slowly dimming back down to the faint glow they had first seen. "Report?" Ryan snapped. "All systems normal," the engineer called out. "The pulse didn't damage anything. It just passed through us." Amy was studying her sensors with an expression Ryan had never seen on her face before. Fear. "Captain, that pulse is still going. It's spreading out through the sector, through the whole region of space. It's not stopping. What does that mean?" "I don't know," Amy admitted. "But Captain, that pulse is traveling faster than light." "Much faster. It's spreading through space like ripples on water. In a few days, it will have crossed half the galaxy." Ryan felt cold. "We need to report this immediately. Send a message to Earth Command and the Galactic Council. Tell them what we found and what happened." Over the next hour, they sent multiple messages explaining everything they had discovered. They included sensor data, images, and Amy's analysis of the ancient structure. Then they waited for a response. The reply from the Galactic Council came first. It was brief and dismissive. They claimed that the humans must have misidentified a natural phenomenon. The energy readings were probably just sensor glitches caused by the nebula's interference. The structure, if it existed at all, was likely just ancient debris from some long-dead civilization. Nothing important. The Council's message ended with an order: stay away from the structure and resume mining operations. Do not investigate further. It was for their own safety, the message said. Ryan read the message 3 times, his anger growing with each reading. They had found something incredible. Something that might be one of the most important archaeological discoveries in galactic history. And the Council was telling them to ignore it and go back to looking for rocks. They don't believe us, he said to Amy. Or they don't want to believe us, she replied. Captain, I've been studying the images of that structure. The symbols carved into it, the architectural style, even the proportions of the design. They're not exactly like human mythology, but they're similar. Too similar to be coincidence. What are you saying? Amy hesitated. I'm saying that either humans somehow knew about this place thousands of years ago, which is impossible, or whoever built this structure also visited Earth a long time ago and influenced our myths and legends. Ryan looked at the image of the ancient ring on the screen. The Council laughed at our myths 6 months ago. They said such things were primitive and childish. Maybe they were wrong, Amy said quietly. Maybe, Ryan agreed. Or maybe this is why they don't want us investigating. Maybe they're scared of what we might find. They stayed near the Veil of Silence for another day, taking more readings and images of the structure. It remained inactive, glowing faintly, but the emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything Jake Morrison had ever seen. Every member species was present, their representatives shouting and arguing in dozens of different languages. The translation systems were struggling to keep up, creating a chaos of overlapping voices that filled the Grand Chamber. 23 ships had vanished in the last week. 23 vessels from different species, different sectors, all gone without a trace. No debris, no distress signals, nothing. They had simply ceased to exist. Jake stood with Lisa Harper in the human observation area. As provisional members, they couldn't speak during council sessions unless specifically asked. They could only watch and listen as the older, more experienced species tried to figure out what was happening. Ambassador Thren was shouting louder than anyone. His crystalline body flashed angry shades of red and orange. We must mobilize our defense fleets. Whatever is taking our ships must be stopped. We don't even know what it is. Another representative argued. How can we fight something we cannot see or understand? Then send scout ships to investigate the disappearances. We already did. 3 scout ships were sent to the last known location of the missing vessels. All 3 scouts are now missing as well. The chamber erupted in fresh panic. Jake exchanged a glance with Lisa. This was bad. Very bad. The Galactic Council had existed for thousands of years, maintaining peace and order across hundreds of star systems. They had dealt with wars, natural disasters, and countless other crises. But Jake had never heard such fear in their voices before. What about the humans? Someone called out. They found that structure, the one that sent out the pulse before all this started. Maybe they know something. All eyes turned toward Jake and Lisa. Jake felt his stomach tighten. The council had dismissed their report about the ancient structure, had told them it was nothing important. Now they wanted answers? The presiding voice spoke. Human representatives, you may address the council. Jake and Lisa moved forward to the speaker's platform. As it rose, Jake could see the fear on the alien faces around them. These were beings who had traveled the stars for millennia, who had seen wonders and terrors beyond human imagination. And they were terrified. We reported what we found, Jake said carefully. An ancient structure in the Veil of Silence. When our ship approached, it activated and sent out a pulse of energy. We don't know what the pulse was for or what it was meant to do. Could it have been a weapon? Thren demanded. Could your interference have triggered an ancient defense system? We don't think so, Lisa said. The pulse didn't harm our ship. It just passed through us. If it was a weapon, it wasn't designed to hurt anyone. Then what was it designed for? Lisa hesitated. We think it was a signal. A message, maybe? Or a summons, A summons for what? Before Lisa could answer, every screen in the chamber suddenly went dark. Then they flickered back to life, showing the same image. A view of space from the edge of the galaxy, where nothing should exist except empty darkness. But the darkness wasn't empty anymore. Something was moving through it. Ships, massive vessels that dwarfed anything the Galactic Council had ever built. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds, moving in perfect formation toward the galaxy. The chamber went completely silent. Where did those images come from? Someone whispered. From our deep space monitoring stations, another voice answered. At the galactic rim. Those ships, they're approaching from outside the galaxy? From the void between galaxies. How is that possible? Nothing lives in the void. Nothing can survive there. Apparently, something can. The ships on the screens grew larger as they approached. Jake could see details now. The vessels were beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. They looked like they were made of light and shadow woven together, with designs that seemed to shift and change as he watched. They didn't follow any architectural style he recognized, yet somehow they felt familiar. Then the ships stopped. They hung at the edge of the galaxy, waiting. One of the vessels moved forward, larger than all the others. It was shaped like a great bird with wings spread wide, and it glowed with a soft golden light. A voice filled the chamber. It didn't come from the speakers or the translation systems. It came from everywhere and nowhere, resonating in Jake's bones and his mind at the same time. Civilizations of the galaxy, we are the guardians. We have returned. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The voice continued. Long ago, we were placed in this universe by our creators. Our purpose is to watch over developing life and to protect against the darkness that hunts between the stars. For millions of years, we have slept, waiting for the signal that our vigil was needed once more. On the screens, the massive ship began to transform. It was hard to watch, hard to understand. The ship seemed to exist in more dimensions than Jake's eyes could process. It hurt to look at directly, like staring at the sun. The ancient sentinel has awakened us. The threat is coming. The devourers approach, and this galaxy must prepare. Thren found his voice, though it shook. What are the devourers? The scene on the screens changed. Now it showed other galaxies, beautiful spiral arms of stars and light. Then the image shifted forward in time. The stars began to disappear, eaten away by something dark that moved through space like a swarm of insects. Within moments, entire galaxies were reduced to empty voids, nothing left but cold darkness. The devourers exist outside the laws of your reality, the voice explained. They consume energy, matter, and life itself. They have destroyed 17 galaxies. Now they come for this one. The chamber erupted in panic again, but this time it was different. This wasn't the organized chaos of a debate. This was pure fear. Representatives were shouting, some were trying to leave, others seemed frozen in shock. How long do we have? Someone managed to ask. Days, perhaps a week. They move through dimensions you do not understand, traveling faster than light can cross the space between stars. Can they be stopped? Thren asked. Can they be fought? Yes, that is why we are here. But your weapons will not harm them. Your science does not yet comprehend the nature of their existence. You must trust us and follow our guidance if you wish to survive. Jake felt Lisa grab his arm. Jake, she whispered. Look at the lead ship. Really look at it. He focused on the massive vessel on the screens. At first, all he saw was the shifting patterns of light and shadow. But as he watched, he started to see shapes in those patterns. Familiar shapes. A figure with wings. A warrior in armor. A woman with flowing hair holding a spear. Oh my God, he breathed. It looks like angels. Like Greek gods. Like the figures from our myths. Lisa nodded, her eyes wide. It's not just similar. It's exact. Those patterns, those shapes. They're the same images humans have been drawing for thousands of years. Before they could process this revelation, one of the Guardian ships moved toward the Galactic Council station. It was smaller than the flagship, but still enormous. As it approached, a beam of light shot out and materialized into a form inside the chamber itself. The form was hard to look at. It shifted and changed, sometimes appearing as a tall figure in gleaming armor, sometimes as a being of pure light, sometimes as something that Jake's brain couldn't quite understand. But mostly, it looked like a warrior from ancient legends, with eyes that burned like stars. "I am designated as Sentinel-7, the figure said. "I will serve as liaison between the Guardians and your council. We have much to discuss and little time. The Devourers will arrive soon, and you are not prepared." Thren stepped forward, trying to reassert some authority. "We have the most advanced military forces in the galaxy." "Our technology is irrelevant?" the Guardian interrupted. "Your weapons fire energy and matter. The Devourers exist partially outside of normal space-time. Your attacks will pass through them harmlessly, while they will tear your ships apart with ease. Then how do we fight them?" Another representative demanded. The Guardian turned, its gaze sweeping across the chamber. Then it stopped, looking directly at Jake and Lisa. "Where are the humans?" Jake felt every eye in the chamber turn toward them. His mouth went dry. "We are here," Lisa said, her voice surprisingly steady. The Guardian's form solidified slightly, becoming more clearly defined. Now it looked almost exactly like a knight from medieval Earth legend, complete with armor and a great sword. It moved toward their platform. "You activated the Sentinel," it said. "You rang the bell that called us home." "We didn't know what it was," Jake said. "We were just exploring." "We didn't mean to—" "You did what was needed," the Guardian interrupted. "The Sentinel was placed there for you to find. Your species has been chosen as our primary liaisons in this galaxy." "What?" "Why us?" The Guardian tilted its head, studying them. "Because you remember. Because you kept the stories alive when all others forgot." "I don't understand," Lisa said. "You will," the Guardian replied. "But first, we must deal with the immediate threat. The Devourers are close. We can feel them approaching through the space between dimensions." It turned back to the Council. "Gather your forces at these coordinates." A star map appeared in the air, showing a sector near the galactic core. "Evacuate all civilians from these regions. Focus your shields on dimensional stability, not kinetic or energy defense. We will provide you with the specifications needed to modify your systems. You expect us to follow your orders?" The Guardian flagship was nothing like any ship Jake had ever seen. When the transport shuttle brought him and Lisa aboard, they stepped out into a space that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Corridors stretched in directions that shouldn't be possible, and rooms seemed larger on the inside than the outside. Light came from everywhere and nowhere, and the walls showed images that might have been windows into other places or other times. Guardian met them at the docking bay. This one appeared as a tall woman with silver hair that flowed like water, wearing robes that sparkled like starlight. Her eyes were kind but ancient, holding wisdom that made Jake feel like a child. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Vigil," she said. Her voice was softer than the one they had heard in the council chamber, more gentle. "I am Sentinel-12, though you may call me Vara if it is easier for your minds to grasp. Please follow me. The others are waiting." "The others?" Lisa asked. "The Council of Sentinels. We wish to speak with you before the battle begins. There's much you need to understand." They followed Vara through the impossible corridors. Jake noticed that despite the strange architecture, he never felt dizzy or disoriented. His mind somehow accepted what his eyes were seeing. Even though it shouldn't be possible, they entered a large chamber where 7 other Guardians waited. Each one appeared different. Some looked like warriors, others like scholars or priests. All of them had that same ancient quality in their eyes, that sense of having seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Sentinel-7, the armored guardian from the council chamber, stepped forward. "Thank you for coming. Please sit. We know you have questions." Chairs materialized from nowhere, perfectly sized for humans. Jake and Lisa sat, though Jake couldn't help feeling like a student called before a council of gods. "Why us?" Lisa asked immediately. "You said we were chosen as your liaisons?" You said we remember. What do we remember? The Guardians exchanged glances. Vara spoke first. To answer that, we must tell you a story. A true story about your species' history. She waved her hand, and the room around them changed. Suddenly they were standing on Earth, but not the Earth Jake knew. This was ancient Earth, when humans still lived in caves and hunted with stone weapons. Jake could see a small tribe gathered around a fire, families huddled together against the cold night. 50,000 years ago, your species was very young, Vara said. You had language, tools, and fire, but you were struggling to survive. The Ice Age was harsh and many tribes were dying. We were passing through your galaxy, checking on developing civilizations, when we found your world. The scene changed. Now Jake could see ships descending from the sky, guardian vessels landing near human settlements. The ancient humans stared in wonder and fear as beings of light and power emerged from the ships. We made contact with your ancestors, another guardian said. His form shifting between a bearded man and a bird with golden feathers. We taught them things that would help them survive. Better ways to make fire. How to find water. Which plants could heal and which could harm. Simple things, but vital for a young species. Lisa was leaning forward, completely focused. You uplifted us? No, Vara said firmly. We helped you, but we did not change you. Your intelligence, your creativity, your drive to survive, those were all yours. We simply gave you knowledge that would let you use your natural gifts more effectively. But we gave you something else as well, Sentinel-7 said. Something more important. The scene changed again. Now they were watching guardian teachers sitting with human elders, drawing symbols in the dirt, pointing at the stars, using hand gestures to explain complex ideas. We gave you information about the universe, Sentinel-7 continued. We told you about the structure of reality, about the forces that govern existence, about the threats that lurk in the darkness between galaxies. We told you about ourselves, our purpose, and our creators. Jake felt his breath catch. You taught ancient humans about cosmic physics and interdimensional threats. How could they possibly understand? They couldn't, another guardian admitted. Not as technical facts. Their brains had not yet evolved the capacity for abstract scientific thought. So they translated what we taught them into the only framework they had: stories. The scene shifted to show a human elder telling a story to children gathered around a fire. He spoke of gods who came from the sky, who controlled thunder and lightning, who watched over the tribes and protected them from monsters in the dark. Zeus and his lightning bolt, Lisa whispered. The thunder god wasn't just a primitive way to explain weather. He was a memory of guardians who could manipulate energy. Exactly, Vara said. She pointed to another scene where humans were drawing pictures on cave walls. Figures with wings, beings of light, warriors fighting dark creatures. Every human culture we contacted developed their own mythology based on what we taught them. The Greeks, the Norse, the Egyptians, the Chinese, the Native Americans, all of them remembered us, but each in their own way. The 12 labors of Hercules, Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. The trials that heroes had to pass. Were those lessons? Ways to teach humans about different types of challenges they might face? A guardian who appeared as an old man with a long beard nodded. Yes, each monster represented a different kind of threat or problem. The Hydra taught that some enemies multiply when you attack them blindly. The Nemean lion taught that some threats cannot be defeated by strength alone but require intelligence. Every myth carried lessons. Jake's mind was racing. And the gods themselves? Zeus, Odin, Ra, they were all based on you? On us and our creators, Sentinel-7 said. We explained that we served beings of immense power who had shaped the fundamental forces of the universe. Your ancestors called those beings gods and gave them names and personalities they could understand. Zeus for energy and power, Poseidon for the fluidity of space-time, Hades for the dark energy that exists between dimensions. The scene around them changed again, showing different cultures across Earth. Each one had their own myths, their own gods and heroes, but Jake could see the common threads now. The themes of light versus darkness, heroes facing impossible challenges, the need for courage and sacrifice. You weren't just teaching survival skills, Lisa said. You were preparing us. Preparing humanity for something. Yes, Vara said sadly. We knew the Devourers existed. We had encountered them before, in other galaxies. We knew that eventually they might come to this galaxy, and we wanted the young species we found to have a chance of surviving. So we encoded survival information into your myths. But why didn't you just write it down? Jake asked. Why rely on oral tradition and stories? We did write some of it down, another guardian said. But writing can be lost. Tablets can break, books can burn, digital storage can fail. Stories, those stories that touch the heart and spark the imagination, those survive. They get passed from parent to child, generation after generation. They become part of a culture's identity. Vara waved her hand again, and they saw human history flowing past. Civilizations rose and fell. Libraries burned. Languages changed. But through it all, the stories persisted. New versions, new interpretations, but the core themes remained. You weren't the only species we visited, Sentinel-7 said. We made contact with 47 developing civilizations across this galaxy. We gave each of them the same information, adapted to their level of understanding. We hoped that when the time came, when the Devourers arrived, these species would remember enough to help defend their galaxy. But the others forgot, Lisa said quietly. They advanced, they developed science and technology, and they left their myths behind as primitive superstitions. Exactly, Vara said. The other species outgrew their stories. They became proud of their logic and reason. They saw their ancient myths as embarrassing remnants of a less intelligent past. Within a few thousand years, all of them had abandoned the knowledge we gave them. Except us, Jake said. Except you, Sentinel-7 confirmed. Humans did something unique. You advanced. You developed science and technology. You learned to build cities and ships and computers. But you never stopped telling the old stories. You turned them into art, literature, religion, philosophy. You argued about what they meant. You rewrote them and reinterpreted them, but you never forgot them. The scene around them changed one final time. Now they were looking at modern Earth. Jake could see libraries full of mythology books. Museums displaying ancient art, children reading stories about Greek heroes. Movies and games based on Norse legends. You kept the memory alive, Vara said. Not as literal truth, not as scientific fact, but as something deeper. As cultural touchstones. As sources of meaning and inspiration. And in doing so, you preserved information that humanity will need in the days ahead. Lisa was crying quietly. The Galactic Council laughed at us. They said our myths proved we were primitive. They were wrong, Sentinel-7 said firmly. Your myths prove you are wise? Wise enough to understand that not all important truths can be expressed as equations. Some truths must be felt in the heart before they can be grasped by the mind. The ancient structure that Captain Beck found, Jake said. The one that sent out the signal. You put that there for us to find? The war room on Earth's orbital command station was packed with more people than it was designed to hold. Military officers, scientists, politicians, and civilian advisors all crowded together, staring at the massive display screens showing the fleet gathering near the galactic core. Commander Kate Phillips stood at the central console, her hands moving quickly across the controls as she coordinated humanity's contribution to the defense. Earth had sent every ship that could fly and every weapon that could fire. It wasn't much compared to the massive fleets of the older species, but it was everything humans had. Jake Morrison stood beside her, having been promoted to admiral and given command of the human forces for this battle. Lisa Harper was there too, along with dozens of other experts who had been studying the Guardian technology and trying to understand how to fight an enemy that existed outside normal reality. Status report, Jake said. Kate pulled up the numbers. We have 47 human ships in position. The Galactic Council has contributed over 3,000 vessels from various species. The Guardians have deployed 150 ships. All forces are holding at the designated coordinates, waiting for the Devourers to arrive. And the modifications to our weapons? Lisa asked. Dr. Ben Crawford, Earth's lead physicist, stepped forward. Complete on all human vessels. We followed the Guardian specifications exactly. Our shields are now configured to stabilize dimensional integrity instead of blocking kinetic impacts. Our weapons have been recalibrated to fire in multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. Will it work? Jake asked. Then hesitated. Honestly, I have no idea. This is technology that's at least 1,000,000 years beyond anything we've developed. We're following instructions we barely understand, trying to fight an enemy that shouldn't exist according to our physics. If you want certainty, I can't give it to you. What I want is honesty, Jake said. And you just gave me that. Thank you. An alarm sounded across the station. Kate's fingers flew across her console, pulling up new data. Admiral, we're getting reports from the perimeter sensors. Something's appearing at the edge of the designated battle zone. The main screen shifted to show long-range scans. At first there was nothing. Then the space itself seemed to twist and tear, like reality was being ripped apart. Dark shapes began pouring through the tiers, hundreds of them, thousands of them. My God. Someone whispered the Devourers didn't look like ships or creatures or anything that should exist in normal space. They were voids, absences, hungry emptinesses that consumed light and matter wherever they moved. Looking at them made Jake's eyes hurt and his mind rebel. His brain kept trying to make sense of what he was seeing and failing. All forces, this is Guardian Command, Vara's voice came through the communication systems. The Devourers have arrived. Engage defensive formations. Remember your training. Do not rely solely on your technology. Trust in the lessons of the ancient stories. The battle began. The Galactic Council fleets opened fire first, their weapons blazing across space. But just as the Guardians had warned, most of the attacks passed straight through the Devourers without effect. The creatures moved forward, surrounding ships and tearing them apart with impossible ease. Within minutes, a dozen vessels had been destroyed. Human forces, hold position, Jake ordered. Wait for my command. He watched the battle unfold, his mind racing. The other species were fighting like they always had, with overwhelming firepower and tactical precision. It wasn't working. The Devourers weren't a conventional enemy. They needed a different approach. An idea came to him, based on a story he had read as a child. In Greek mythology, when Hercules faced the Hydra, cutting off its heads only made more heads grow back. Direct attack made the problem worse. The solution was to change tactics, to use fire to seal the wounds so new heads couldn't grow. Kate, he said quickly, pull up the tactical data on the destroyed ships. Show me the pattern of how the Devourers are moving. Kate worked the console, and the pattern became clear. The Devourers were spreading out, dividing and multiplying each time they consumed a ship. The more the Council fleets attacked, the more targets appeared. They're like the Hydra, Lisa said, seeing the same thing Jake had. Every time we hurt them, they multiply. We're making them stronger. Then we need to change how we fight, Jake said. He opened a channel to all human ships. All vessels, new orders, stop firing your primary weapons. Switch to dimensional stabilizers only. Create a perimeter. Don't try to destroy them, try to contain them. Admiral, that's insane, one of his captains protested. We'll be defenseless. No, we'll be smart, trust me. And trust the stories. The human ships broke formation and moved to surround a group of Devourers. Instead of firing weapons, they activated their modified shields, creating a web of dimensional stability that the creatures couldn't pass through. The Devourers thrashed and pushed, but they were trapped. It's working, Kate shouted. The containment is holding. Jake opened a channel to the Guardian flagship. Vara, we've contained a cluster of them. What now? Now we show you why we needed humanity, Vara replied. Guardian ships moved forward, their weapons glowing with light that seemed to come from a different reality entirely. When they fired, the beams didn't just destroy the Devourers, they erased them, removing them from existence entirely. But the Guardian weapons only worked on targets that were contained and stabilized first. All Council forces, this is Guardian Command. Sentinel-7's voice boomed across all channels. Follow the human strategy. Contain and stabilize, then we will eliminate. This is how heroes defeat monsters, not with brute force, but with wisdom and coordination. The tide of battle began to turn. The Galactic Council fleets, humbled and desperate, followed humanity's lead. Ships from dozens of species worked together to create containment zones while the Guardians methodically eliminated the trapped devourers. But there were too many of them. For every cluster contained, 2 more appeared. Ships were still being lost, shields were failing, and the devourers kept coming. In the war room, Lisa was frantically studying human mythology, looking for more answers. Jake, in Norse mythology, when the gods faced the forces of chaos at Ragnarok, they didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with sacrifice. They gave up everything to save what mattered most. Jake understood immediately. He opened a channel to the entire human fleet. All ships, listen carefully. We're going to do something that goes against every tactical principle we know. We're going to drop our shields and channel all our power into the dimensional stabilizers. We'll be completely vulnerable, but we'll create a containment field large enough to trap most of the remaining devourers at once. Admiral, that's suicide, Kate said quietly. Maybe, Jake agreed, but it's also the only way to win. The myths taught us that sometimes the hero has to sacrifice everything. Sometimes that's the only way to defeat the monster. There was a long pause. Then, one by one, the human captains responded. Understood, Admiral. We're with you. On my mark, Jake said. 3, 2, 1, execute. Every human ship dropped its defensive shields and poured all its power into the dimensional stabilizers. A massive field of stability spread across the battlefield, freezing the devourers in place. The creatures were trapped, unable to move or multiply, but without shields, the human ships were exposed. Devourers that hadn't been caught in the field tore into them. Jake watched on the screens as ship after ship was destroyed. Good people, brave people, dying to give the galaxy a chance. Guardian forces now. Vara's voice cut through the chaos. The Guardian ships unleashed everything they had. Beams of pure creation light swept across the battlefield, erasing the trapped devourers from existence. It took less than a minute, but in that minute humanity paid a terrible price. When it was over, only 19 of the 47 human ships remained, but the devourers were gone. The tears in reality were sealing. The battle was won. The war room on Earth Station erupted in cheers, but Jake felt no joy. Too many people had died. Too many ships had been lost. Kate put a hand on his shoulder, saying nothing, just being there. Over the next few days, the full scope of the victory became clear. The dimensional breaches had been sealed. The surviving devourers had been driven back into the void between galaxies. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss what had happened. This time, when Jake and Lisa entered the chamber, there was no laughter. The representatives stood as they approached, showing respect that humanity had never received before. Ambassador Thren, his crystalline body now a subdued blue color, spoke first. Humans of Earth, on behalf of the Valorian Empire and the entire Galactic Council, I offer our deepest apologies. We mocked your myths. We called you primitive. We were wrong. You saved us all. Other representatives echoed his words. The being of light that had once laughed at human legends now dimmed in shame. The tentacled ambassador who had called humanity childish now could barely meet their gaze. Your myths were not superstitions, Thren continued. They were wisdom. Wisdom that we had lost and you had kept alive. Because of your stories, because of your refusal to forget, this galaxy survived, the presiding voice spoke. Earth is hereby granted full membership in